5 seconds to go. Here we are. Excellent, let's do it. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. A very warm and heartfelt welcome from all of us here at the farm, of course. We are very, very excited to bring you episode 2, which is today. This is this episode, it is worth noting, of course, that we are very much live out there to the world of Facebook and Instagram and the social media spheres. We had a great first episode last week. With Andrew Quinn, obviously our chief winemaker, looking into basically all things. We really went to the core of lots of stuff. But keep in mind, obviously, because we are live out there to the world of Facebook and Insta, we wanted to. This is very much a back and forth. All right, so we want you as involved as humanly possible. All of your questions, we're going to see what we can do to obviously get to them today. And nothing is too crazy to ask. So I really want that to be the case right throughout. With episode 1 last week, lots of excitement there. Having Andrew obviously talk through what the farm is about, what we're doing. Today, though, we of course have one man, arguably known as, I'm going to call you the wine whisperer, or the vine whisperer at the very least. We have our vineyard manager, Brandon Emmanuel, along today. Brendon, thank you so very much for joining us.
No, you're welcome. Thank you.
So I guess the great part is, for a lot of people who are listening in or watching in, probably curious to know a little bit about what a vineyard manager actually does. Obviously, I know that you do heaps of stuff. You're a hard man to get a hold of. You're always out there in the vineyard doing something. Give us a bit of an idea as to a day in the life of Brendon.
Well, a day in the vineyard, let's as an example, today we get up, organise the guys. We're doing a bit of...
You wake up pretty early though, right? You're an early riser from what I understand.
What's early?
My early is different to your early. This is a
6:30 is my early.
No, that's pretty good.
So it's not super early.
Out for a run? Is this a thing?
No. It's far too cold for running.
Fair enough. So you're up at 6:30?
Yeah, 6:30 up. Get myself sorted out. We start work. We start at 8 o'clock most mornings.
Fair enough.
So generally it's myself, and I've got an offside of Poppy.
Yep.
So as an example, today we were out training up water shoots.
Yep.
Which is kind of basically like pruning.
Yeah. So explain what a water shoot is, I guess, for people who don't necessarily know anything about a vineyard. What a water shoot?
So imagine, throughout the year, what happens, well, through the growing of a vine, you'll get the trunk that it gets itself established, and then generally during the growing season, you'll get little shoots coming off down the bottom of the trunk, and those shoots are essentially what we call a water shoot or a summer shoot. And what we're doing is we're training those summer shoots up to start a new vine, because we've got a little bit of disease in the vineyard which we're trying to remove.
Yeah, okay.
The disease is dieback, which is a pretty common thing throughout, particularly the Barossa.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, fair. And there's obviously a heap of different ways to obviously combat all of that sort of type of stuff, I guess, as well, which takes a fair bit of time, I suppose, out there.
Absolutely.
And obviously with these very cold days, we're now getting into these very chilly mornings out there at the moment.
5 degrees this morning.
Yuck. It's just, it's too cold. It's too cold for me anyway. But anyway, you're out there and amongst it, and so you're doing these water shoots. What else would you be doing sort of in an average sort of day?
So stuff like turning the compost.
Yeah.
We make our own compost from the grape mark.
Which kind of, obviously this is a very big sort of pillar, I guess, of Hentley Farm.
Yeah, and we like to...
sustainable, and that we're kind of going down that particular front. So was that sort of a decision from yourself to kind of go down that particular path?
Oh, it was definitely a joint decision.
Yeah.
And we started doing this when I started here in 2010.
Yeah. So this is 10 years now.
10 years.
10 years is a fair bit.
It's a long
Got
time.
a gold watch and all that stuff. Is that a thing? I don't think it is.
Yeah. The Hentley Farm in Boston.
Yeah. Fair. So 10 years here in the vineyard. I guess how did you get started? I guess in terms of how you become a vineyard manager is probably, because there's probably some guys out there that maybe want to even get into the industry. I don't even necessarily know, but I think it'd be just interesting to find out how you get to become a vineyard manager. Were you always a vineyard manager is probably my question.
No, definitely not. I was definitely not always a vineyard manager. It's probably an odd path that I took. I left high school and went straight into the military.
Yeah, right.
So I was in the army for close to 7 years.
Okay.
Served at a para unit, 3 hour.
Yep.
Did a couple of overseas tours and then decided to get out of the army.
Right.
And I was doing outdoor ed, so rock climbing. I was a rock climbing instructor for a short period.
Yep.
And then I just sort of fell into the job.
Yep.
Came and did vintage in 2010, and then I was 12, 13 weeks I was here.
Yep.
As a casual, and then I went away for what was ended up being 8 weeks or so.
Yep.
And I got a call from Quinny
Right.
and said, "We're happy the way you worked during vintage.
Yep.
Do you want to come back on a full-time role?" And here I am 10 years later.
There you go.
So while I was here, I studied at uni.
Yep.
So I studied viticulture through Charles Sturt University.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and that was all while I was working.
Fair enough. So very non-traditional path, I probably is.
I would imagine so. Yeah.
Not too many army people then getting into the world of vineyard management. I wouldn't have thought.
No, it's probably not. Most people don't leave the army going, "I'm going to be a vineyard manager."
Completely fair. So I guess the thing from the perspective of, you know, every vineyard has their own sort of ways in which they sort of they manage, I guess, right? And there's some different philosophies and themes. With the rise, I guess, of, you know, organic and biodynamic sort of, you know, working its way through at the moment, how is it the philosophy of the farm and you under your management?
I like to call it minimal intervention.
Mm-hmm.
So we have previously, the last 3 years, and as an example, we've done a single pass of herbicide during spring, and that's basically to knock off these broadleaf weeds that we get that sort of take a lot of water out of the soil, that sort of compete with the vines. And then what we do is we let the grasses grow underneath. So it's not a conventional style of management. I'd really like to move towards an organically run vineyard. Okay,
you've heard it here. You've heard it here first, of course. I don't know if it is first necessarily, but I'm going to say we're breaking the fourth wall. But moving towards organic, biodynamic, or just organic necessarily.
Probably organic. Biodynamic. It's probably a bit more. I probably have to look into it a bit more.
Yeah.
You know, but we certainly want to take away any of these inorganic chemicals.
Yeah.
And I'd rather not use chemical in the vineyard.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Possible.
So if you just joined us, of course, we're here with Brand and Emmanuel, who is our vineyard manager, talking a little bit about the world of vineyards, obviously, and obviously our specifically very special vineyard here at Hentley Farm. Now, of course, we have put out there to the social media sphere of what kind of wines you would like to hear a little bit more about. And I'm going to give a little shout out to one of our CLO members who is, I believe, listening in from Queensland at the moment. Chris, if you're listening, a big Cabernet fan, of course, we've decided to obviously showcase a little bit of Cabernet for you as our treat, obviously, as we launch at full speed, obviously, into the weekend. So, now I will reiterate, of course, if you are listening, I want to hear, of course, where also you're listening from. Last week we had someone from Singapore, we had someone from over in Canada. We want to see if we can somehow beat that. I don't know if we can, they're both pretty far away. But what we are going to do is we're going to launch into Cabernet and learn a little bit more about the DNA, obviously, of the vineyard by looking at two wines from obviously different parts of our portfolio. We're looking at our sort of what we would deem to be our more entry-level example of the Hentley Farm Cabernet, and then of course onto one of our big boys, a wine that I know that you're particularly excited about, but also I'm a big fan of as well, and a lot of people out there I'm hoping are a big fan of this one too, looking into the 2017 Von Kasper. So what I think we might do at this point in time, how are we looking? We're all looking good? Everyone's happy?
Yeah, so we've got a couple of comments, guys. We've got people coming in from the Gold Coast all the way over to Queensland.
Yes!
And of course, very notable, we've had Ryan Cabernet mentioned that he's enjoying a 2010 Zinfandel this evening.
Yes!
So quite a beautiful wine.
Great wine. Drinking beautifully, I would have thought, right now.
And that's all we got at the moment. We've got so many people joining in constantly. So you guys please send in where you're watching from and what you're enjoying this evening. But we do have, of course, a bit of a cheeky comment about Nick's man bun.
Yes.
Take it how you love it. But
Yes.
this is also got a 2016 quintessential Shiraz and Cabernet blend. And as well, a number of people joining in, all the way from Gawler East.
Gawler East!
Yes.
This is perfect. This works out very well indeed.
Absolutely.
Perfect.
And also from New Zealand. So that's
cool.
it at the moment. Yeah, but please send it in, guys, where you're watching from and what you're enjoying this evening.
Excellent. And the voice you just heard, of course, is Brand Ambassador Angus Hyder. Most of you will know him over in this state, of course, in South Australia, or over obviously in WA. But thank you, Angus, for giving those questions. But I think we should probably kick this knockoffs off. We should probably have a little tipple together. We're going to start off with the 2018 Cab. Cheers to you, Brendon. Thank you very much for joining us today.
It's the whole point of being here.
Well, that's kind of it, yeah. So we need to get involved, obviously, on all things Cabernet today. Now, obviously, our site itself, we're looking at 150 acres of land under vine. We're not looking at a huge amount, obviously. So we very much specialise in the estate-grown examples, single vineyard expressions. But with this one here, obviously, to find, realistically, we're looking at a beautiful estate-grown Cabernet under $30 a bottle.
Yeah.
Pretty hard to find, I guess, if we're looking at estate-grown specifically.
Definitely.
What are your thoughts, I guess? So we're looking at the 2018, which is the current release at the moment. Tell me a little bit about how this is actually grown, obviously, versus the one Kasper when we get to that.
Yeah, okay. So so we've got 4 blocks of Cabernet on the property. One of them being the Von Kasper, and then the other 3 blocks.
Cheers, by the way. I'm gonna do another cheers.
Another
I
cheers?
kind of just want to have a sip as we're doing this as well. So
Sorry.
I think we're going to break the wall. I think it's important. If we don't sip, we'd be doing the wrong thing.
We keep cheersing and not sipping.
Cheers. Good point. Let's sip. That's freaking awesome.
It's good.
So explain. So with the vineyard itself, so we're looking at 3.
So there's 3 separate blocks that we use for this.
Yep.
2 of those blocks are across, let's call it 50 metres away from the beast block.
Yeah.
Pretty similar soil structure, heavy clay, pretty tightly bound clay.
Yeah.
So the vines sort of work pretty hard.
Yeah.
On those 2 blocks.
Mm-hmm.
And then up on the hill, we've got like a higher dark loam component.
Yep.
In the soil.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we picked those 3 blocks for this, and we picked one of the blocks quite early, so we can maintain some of that Cabernet characteristic.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, if we leave it out there in the Barossa Valley, it's quite hot.
Yeah.
During summer,
Mm-hmm.
despite the fact that it's cold this morning.
Yeah.
It's
very cold.
It is. So all 3 blocks are north-south orientated.
Yeah. Right.
So there's a lot of sun exposure, and if we don't pick anything early, what happens is we just end up getting like a real dry red characteristic without really any Cabernet expression.
Yeah.
So we like to pick, when I say we, Quinny will suggest we come in and pick something early.
Yeah.
It's got those Cabernet characteristics,
Mm-hmm.
and we'll pick that early.
Yep. Perfect. And so I guess when we're looking at something like this, it's probably a little bit more mid-bodied than obviously the voluptuousness that we're going to be looking into with the Von Kasper in a second. But in terms of drinkability, in terms of where this is sort of going, from a cellarability perspective, what would you say something like this would be reasonably happy to go to, from your opinion?
It wouldn't make it a week in my house.
Which is what we want, exactly right. So a week is good.
A week is good.
But thinking about, I guess, from a longer term sort of perspective, happy 5-10 years?
Definitely.
Yeah, at least.
I would have thought so.
Yeah. Whereas obviously when we get over to Von Kasper territory, looking at slightly more intensity, a little bit longer than that, most definitely. Perfect. Question, I believe, from Angus.
Well, we do have a number of people actually sending in where they are watching
Oh,
from.
good, yes.
Which is pretty amazing, guys. We've got some pretty groundbreaking places that people are watching from, all the way over, as I mentioned, from Singapore. We have Tim Bavino drinking a Creation from 2009. We also have
great wine, Tim.
Also have viewers all the way from Japan as well. as well as, like you said, New Zealand. We've got Sam Bowen, who actually used to work at Hentley Farm and is sending in cheeky...
You're kidding?
Sammy.
Yeah?
Bobo.
He's made a very food-related question of loving the mustard. Don't know what he's referring to there, but I'm sure may or may not.
Pants.
That's right. May or may not have something to do with the pants there.
American mustard, though. It has to. It's very specific. We had this conversation earlier. It must be American.
It has a touch of sweetness to it. As well, we also have a number of people all the way from Perth. We've got Denise and David in Sydney, Greg and Carol Dunn in Brisbane, and of course, two of probably the VIP viewers this evening. We've got Gary and Bernadette, which are very much Brendon's parents. So
Yes!
watching him, keeping an eye on him.
Yes.
Mum and Dad.
So don't say anything silly.
I love it. Thank you for tuning in.
And also we have one more comment as well from Anthony Power, who's watching from Greenwiths in South Australia.
Yeah.
And he's enjoying a 2013 Von Kasper, so joining the Von Kasper Cabernet story.
Yeah, right. Amazing.
Good choice.
Cool. Well, this obviously does beg the question about Von Kasper as we kind of launch into that. Might be interesting to sort of, from your perspective, obviously, of the vineyard, and tell us a little bit about the Von Kasper story from your perspective. Would love to hear, obviously, tell us about the difference, I guess, between what we're looking at here, which is a super sessionable, very extremely drinkable wine, obviously, at the moment, with a lot more sort of savoury profiles, I think, in its youth at the moment, versus obviously something which is into the current release in the 17, completely different nose, completely different profile. I mean, even the colour itself has got so much more depth and intensity.
Yeah.
Von Kasper, over to you.
Yeah, so in particular, the biggest difference is the soil on the Von Kasper. The Von Kasper is pretty similar to, if any of you guys know, the Beauty Block. They're probably 100 metres away from each other, very similar, down by the creek. We talk about the Beauty Block being quite a cool block. The H Block is probably even cooler than Beauty.
Another great wine.
It certainly is.
Which Cabernet on the
So
block
really,
as well, so we'll get back to that in a sec, actually.
Sorry?
With Cabernet, obviously, on with H Block as well.
Yes.
We'll come back to that in a sec, because I think that's kind of interesting as part of the story, of course, as well.
Absolutely. So the soil is really quite deep over there. So there's, over the years, it's basically an old floodplain. So we've had soil been brought in, so we've got a lot of buried horizons, quite deep. The soil has got a really high loam component. It's about 1.5 metres of topsoil.
Yeah, right.
So it's really quite deep, quite loamy. It holds water really well, and then it's also, unlike the other blocks, it's got an east-west orientation. So that east-west orientation helps with shading. So when it's really, really hot in the summer, we can get the grapes fairly ripe and still maintain those pyrazine compounds.
So for those who are just tuning in, obviously we're here with Brand Emmanuel, who is obviously our vineyard manager here. We're looking into the world of Cabernet, a buzzword which has just come up, which is pyrazine. Tell us a little bit about pyrazine, because obviously we're getting on the technical side now, of course, but I'm just curious to hear, obviously, for those who may not know what pyrazine is.
Without being super technical, it's basically just like that vegetal capsicum kind of character that you get in.
Because it's weird, right? When you look into a Cabernet to begin with, it's one of those flavour profiles which almost jump out of the glass straight away, which is this capsicum-y sort of profile.
And you really, really see it.
Yeah.
We're really lucky where it is, where it's situated. It's quite sheltered, the block.
Yeah.
So it's just not exposed to the really intense, sort of hot, dry, boros conditions we get through summer.
Yeah.
It's a pretty unique block.
So with the loam component, what does that actually do for the actual vines themselves, I guess? Because it's interesting to kind of know...
So with the loam component, because we've got clay and loam, what happens is we can hold on to the water that sits in the soil is far more accessible to the vines with that loam, because the clay holds onto the water a lot more tight than loam does. So there's a really high water holding capacity. Yeah. And that water is available to the vines, whereas in the other blocks where it's really heavy clay, there's a lot of water in the soil, but it's just not available to the vines. So the vines have got to work really, really hard to extract that water.
Yeah. So I mean, this is obviously showing a lot of really, it's got so much depth and intensity, I guess, at the moment. Is that a reflection, obviously, of the 17 vintage a little bit, I guess, as well?
So we're pretty lucky. Do we go to the question or do we finish
Actually, yeah, let's go to the question first. That's actually, I'm hoping it's this exact question.
Is it the exact question?
Which would be amazing.
Well, it's a bit of it is, I guess, a couple of different questions, but it's definitely a Cabernet question. So it's very relative to what we're talking about today. Dave from Sydney.
G'day, Dave. Cheers.
Hello.
Hope you've had a good week.
Dave is asking, how would you describe the difference between your Cabernets from Hentley Farm and the WA Cabernets in terms of style and body? So put that question to Nick and Brendon. So a bit of a question.
Great question.
Comparing the Hentley Farm Cabernets with the WA Cabernets in terms of style and body.
Yeah, totally. Do you want to take it?
You take this one, mate.
For me, obviously, when we're looking at these two different styles of wines, completely climactically, obviously different, of course, as well. But when we have a look at, what they look like in the glass specifically, you're looking at, really almost different varietals, to be perfectly honest. When we're here in the Barossa, we're getting much more of these sort of in-depth, intense, more sort of very fruit-driven sort of styles. While we are getting these sort of vegetal capsicum-y sort of profiles off our particular block, we're getting less of those sort of minty eucalyptus-y profiles that are very common, obviously, over in the Margaret River specifically. I don't know a huge amount about the actual soil profiles over in Margaret River versus what we have here. But what I see, obviously, in the glass specifically, is that you see a completely, obviously, different wine. You get much more sort of herbal, black currant sort of type profiles, and that's very, very prominent. Versus much more of this sort of fruit dried, hints of eucalyptus here, but much more of this sort of plummy, almost blackberry profile rather than black currant is probably my way to explain it.
Sounds good.
Very good.
Absolutely, yeah. Thank you so much, Dave, for sending in
that question.
Thank
you, Dave.
Yep. And I also do have another question from Ryan Cavaney, who made a comment before that he's drinking and enjoying a 2010 Zinfandel.
Yes.
So he sent a question in regards to Hentley Farm in general, but this is, how does the interaction and communication work between yourself and Quinny, Brendon? So I guess you guys working together quite closely, so the interaction between the two of you, just, I guess, describe a little bit about how you guys have a bit of banter or a bit of collaboration between you making decisions from the vineyard to the winery.
Yeah, well, basically all the decisions that are made in the vineyard are made between myself and Quinny. We don't, outside of probably watering decisions early on, it's always in consult. You need to make sure that we're growing the grapes suitable for whatever wine they're going to go into every year. Obviously, some blocks are very quite specific.
Yeah.
Like the Beast block is always generally the same. Beauty's always the same. Von Kasper's the same. Basically all the decisions are made together.
Awesome.
Perfect.
Fantastic. Yeah. No worries. Thank you so much, Brian, for sending in your question, guys. Please also do send in your questions as they come through anytime, and we'll get the boys to answer them. And also definitely send in where you're watching from and what you are enjoying tonight as a Hentley Farm wine. But I'll give it back to you, Mr. Nick.
Perfect. Thank you, Angus. Depending on, obviously, no. If you're just tuned in, I'm going to say it one more time because it is very important that we know who you are, because you're the guy. You're all the custodian of the vines. I'm going to say it. So I've said it today, but that's what it is. But I think the thing, when we have a look at these two wines, obviously we're looking at completely different angles, I suppose, of intensity, of quality, I guess, at the end of the day as well, and certainly reflected, I guess, within the price tag, I guess, there too. But completely different wines, obviously, and just great to obviously see them, side by side like this, I think, as well.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. So the interesting thing, as we obviously are looking at these, and please feel free to send us some more questions and information about, straight off the bat, as I say, out of the gun, into Angus's hand. Angus, fire away.
We do have a burning question from Sam again in New Zealand.
Yes.
He is saying, look, I've got 3 bottles. Beast 2017, Beauty 2017, and a Grenache, the Old Legend from 2018. So which do I drink first? So I'll repeat again, Grenache Old Legend 2018. We have a Beast 2017 and a Beauty 2017. Which one does he dig into first?
Without question.
It's entirely up to him.
No, it's not. It's not entirely up to you. You've got to drink the Grenache first. You'd be crazy not to. And obviously that Grenache we focused on last week with Andrew and the huge success, obviously, of the 2018 release. That is an absolutely knockout wine. Don't even question it. Grenache. Then we get into the 97-point weighted Beauty all day long, and then finish off with that Beast, because that is actually going to absolutely nail. It's a huge wine, obviously, but definitely in that order. But you could go on the whole thing about, you know, that we've got choice and all that sort of thing.
It also sounds like Sam's in for a big night.
I reckon he is, I dare say. So this is the thing. I'm always thinking about, you know, our wines, and there's a particular wine that we make called the Villain and Vixen, right? Which isn't a wine that we typically do through our regular channels, but I feel that has a bit of a different meaning for you, Brendon. Tell us a little bit about the Villain and Vixens, if I can ask you that.
Villain and Vixens. Well, we started the Barossa Valley runs a local touch competition, and this year was the first year we entered a Hentley farm team, and we called ourselves the Villain and Vixens.
Very good.
Nick was asked to play. Nick refused.
Well, it's not refusal. That's not it at all. It's just, you know, you.
Sorry. When I say refuse, Nick came out to tryouts and didn't get in.
It's true. I had my socks on. You know, I was there. But if you can appreciate, I'm a food and wine man. I wasn't really down the line with the whole thing. But I've seen you guys from the sideline, and my word, absolute prowess. Can I say? I've said it.
We were somewhat of a disjointed team.
No.
But look, we won a game. And did we rub it in? Yes.
This is a passion of yours, though, outside of obviously what you do in all things, you know, Vineyard. You're a pretty athletic guy. You're out there. I believe you also coach a local soccer team.
Yeah,
junior soccer.
I coach junior soccer. I coach, well, not at the moment, but I coach
down to 11.
Yes,
at times.
But yeah, so for the last 3 years I've been coaching junior soccer.
Yep.
Which is really, really enjoyable.
Yeah, cool. So
yeah,
you've been a mixed bag. Army guy, into obviously the vines, junior soccer, coach, you know, the whole you're a bit of a mixed bag,
I'm learning Japanese.
At the moment?
At the moment.
You're kidding.
I'm not very good at it, but I'm getting there. It's slowly.
This is awesome. Question.
This is quite amazing. So we've got someone on Facebook Live and also someone on Instagram Live asking the exact same question. These look like two different people. So I think the stars have aligned to answer this question. So I'm going to give it to you, boys. The drinking window for the 2014 Clo-Otto. So what would you personally suggest is the best time to enjoy the 2014 Clo-Otto?
This varies in opinion, but I'm going to let you have a crack at it first.
14. Let's call it 2034.
2034. I like it. I think the thing is, when we look at something like the 14, I mean, we're looking at something like Clo-Otto, which is obviously a completely different wine again from what we're looking at today. I mean, this is our flagship. It's our flagship for a reason. Unapologetically, we say 30 plus years, obviously. Whether it will last that long, obviously, Brendon, we talked about that obviously beforehand. But the way in which this wine can obviously continue on, I would say, I mean, at least if you touch it before 10 years, I think you'd be doing it a disservice. But I think at least 20, so what does that make it? If we're 20
years.
That's 20 years. So I think that's probably the 15 to 20 year window is when I definitely say crack that bad boy and have an amazing afternoon / evening / morning, if you're that way inclined. But I want to say a massive thank you, obviously, to you, Brendon, for joining us today, to sharing some of your knowledge about what happens, obviously, out in the vineyard. I guess the exciting part is we've got a great lineup over the next few weeks. With episode 1 last week, or episode 2 this week, we've got our beautiful tasting pack, which if you haven't picked up yet from the website, please go and have a check it there. But we have got very special guest Lachlan Colwell, who's going to be from, obviously, our chef extraordinaire from the restaurant. We've got, of course, our owner and founder, Keith Henschke himself, and then, of course, going back and having a chat with Andrew Quinn. Very excited, obviously, to have another chat with Andrew to find out his thoughts. But if you haven't picked up your pack just yet, the 3rd of May is the cutoff point. I certainly encourage you to purchase your pack if you haven't grabbed it before then. The great part about this is we're actually going to do a little YouTube channel. We're going to upload each of these different episodes throughout the time. And the other exciting part is with a couple of things being lifted in terms of restrictions being lifted here in South Australia, we are in a position where bottle sales from the cellar door are going to be open, and so we're encouraging you to obviously come and say g'day, and obviously if you do want to grab something from the cellar door, we're going to be able to do that very, very easily. So Brendon, thank you so much again. Any final thoughts? Actually, no, I'm not going to. We've got another question, and I feel like this is going to be a good one. I'm hearing some giggles, and we've got Angus Hyder, who's our brand ambassador, behind us. Angus, tell us this question, because there is a big smile on your face at the moment. I would love to hear.
Oh, goodness.
Well, okay, this is a question directly for you, Nick.
Oh, gosh,
so I've got someone on Instagram Live asking you a question.
Yes.
Can Nick please wear velvet pants like the Clowado label next video? So there's been requests for.
I love.
Not only has there been one comment. I think we've actually got a rolling number of comments here from many people to wear a velvet pants, but there is an alternative to wear leather. So that's
some chaps. Well, I don't know if you've seen. I don't know if you've seen my jacket tonight, guys. This is velvet, of course. So keeping it nice and fresh there. They're all Clowado. There is another question, I believe, there as well. I don't know about the velvet pants, so I think it's a bit much.
Just do it.
We do have people saying the people have spoken. So but we do have a number of people also commenting across Facebook and Instagram saying that they have their tasting packs ready for the next 3 episodes. So getting really excited about that.
Perfect.
And another, Mark is going to enjoy a 2009 Zinfandel this evening.
Oh, perfect. Doing a bit of a vertical tasting over there, which is awesome. And also, I did say that I would do this as well because it is a very special day out there, the 1st of May. It's actually my great uncle Henry's birthday today. He's 98 years old, which is a crazy, amazing thing to be. So from us here over at the farm, cheers to you. I really hope you're well. But Brendon, once again, thank you so very much. It's been an absolute pleasure. Can't wait for the next couple of episodes. We might even get you back, Brendon. I don't even know. We're going to have to see.
You get me back.
Yes.
We can talk about your push-ups.
Okay. Oh, yes. No, the Dionys project.
No.
Can't talk about it. It's off air. Done. Okay, guys, from all of us here, it has been a pleasure. From all of us, wishing you a wonderful weekend ahead. We're not talking about it. Thank you so very much. We'll see you next time for episode 3. Cheers from us. Cheers.